Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the November meeting of the Housing Committee of Manhattan Community Board 11. I am John Green, the interim chair. I'm calling the meeting to order at 6:36 p.m. And before we start, there are a few ground rules. First, no one may speak until granted the floor. Now, community board members, if you have a question about board business or need to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. If the icon should be at the bottom of your screen. If you have any technical difficulties, please let Marlene Pierre know that you're having problems, and she will help you. The chat function is not to be used for business discussed during the meeting. It says all remarks should be made on the record. And basically the thing is that if there's, also the chat is only supposed to be used in the event of technical difficulties concerning meeting business. Please keep any questions that you may have and comments you may have brief and on point and on topic. To members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subject on the agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom and wait to be recognized. Okay, the meeting was called to order, and now Marlene, you can take attendance.
Sure. Stephanie Arroyo is excused for tonight's meeting.
Right.
Raja Flores.
Here.
Thank you. John Green.
Here.
Thank you. Robert Harvey.
Here.
Thank you. Jada Heredia. Ivy Hume.
Here.
Thank you. Alonzo Johnson.
Here.
Thank you. Robin Krinsky.
Present.
Thank you. Beverly Pabon.
Present.
Thank you. Xavier Santiago.
Present.
Thank you. And Candy Vives Vasquez.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum, John.
Okay, thank you, Marlene. Okay, the agenda was sent out to board members and is on the website, and that was sent out in advance of tonight's meeting. And so, if there are no excuse me, if there are no objections, the agenda will be adopted. Are there any hands, Marlene, about any objections?
No, there are no hands raised, John.
Okay, thank you,
Has a
Marlene.
hand raised.
Candy?
I just motion. Oh no, we're not doing motion to
Oh, we
accept the
did-
agenda, right?
No, you don't have to do that anymore until we start meeting in person, whenever
Okay.
that is.
All right.
Whatever that is. Okay, now, when it comes to adopting the September, that is squarely on me. I didn't do them, and I'm holding up Marlene, which I apologize for, and I apologize to my fellow committee members. So, but that will be taken care of soon. Hopefully, they will be in your packets for full board. I promise. Okay. Okay. Announcements. Okay. The Federal Monitor for NYCHA will be holding a town hall on NYCHA's lead and mold obligations on Wednesday, November 17th from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Marlene, I believe that can be seen virtually. Can it not?
Yes, it's attached. It was, linked in your agendas, and it's also on the website. So you guys could just follow that link.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next, Manhattan Legal Services and the Taft Houses Resident Association will be holding a workshop tomorrow at 6 p.m. to discuss NYCHA's blueprint for change and HUD Drill Assistant Demonstration Program, or RAD as we know it. That can be done, that can be attended virtually as well. The city council will have a hearing of their committee on housing and buildings. We having a meeting, a hearing to discuss legislation tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. That will be held virtually as well. If you want to view the hearing, you can go to the council's website and see the hearing live. And also, if you want to provide testimony in writing, it will be accepted by the council up to 3 days after the end of the meeting. Okay. Now, informational updates. Okay. Marley, with the information updates, you may have to help me with this.
It's sure, no problem.
Okay, because actually I forgot these, and you probably know more than I do about them.
No problem. It's never a problem to assist you, John. So, and let me lower my screen because I'm looking at the participants. So NYU Ferment Center challenges and opportunities. It was just an article sent out that I shared with you all that I received via email for hotel and housing conversions in New York City. This has been a longstanding, endeavor for the city to try to figure out what spaces can be converted into affordable homes. And that's what's still being spoken about. And the problem was exacerbated during COVID, and COVID is still here. Hopefully COVID doesn't become an endemic, but that's what it seems like it's going to happen. So COVID exacerbated the need for affordable housing. So DHS specifically is trying to see how they could take hotels and turn them into affordable units. As you all remember, shelter residents were in cluster sites in hotels, and East Harlem had 7 of them. DHS did come to this committee, a little before the pandemic. I don't know if you guys can remember. It had to be at the tail end of 2019 to discuss, what was happening in East Harlem in regards to the Mayor's Turning the Tide plan. If you all could remember that plan that had to, go on the back burner because of the pandemic. So this is what this is speaking of. So the second informational update, the fiscal year 2022 gas piping replacement design at Johnson houses. It just means that, this money was awarded to fix, I wrote this down. Right, so NYCHA secured gas piping for Johnson houses, and they were awarded a specific money from the mayor and the comptroller. I also linked that information in your agendas, and it's also linked on the website. So that's specifically what this is. I mean, this is a good thing, this money that was awarded. And we just wanted you as a committee to know if you would like to follow up. That's why it's in informational updates.
Thank you very much, Marlene. Like I always say, you, Carly, and Angel are invaluable.
You're welcome, John. No problem.
So next, now we have our first presentation will be given to us by Wilfredo Lopez, from the office of City Council Member Ben Kalos.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen because I have a little presentation to make things a little bit easier to conceptualize. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, you're clear.
Okay, perfect. All right. So let me just make this. Right. So when we're talking about pressurized walls, the problem is that in recent years, the city's buildings department they've gotten stricter about regulating the use of these pressurized walls in some cases. Basically, they only enforce it when building management companies typically complain. which is few and far in between. In fact, there's a cottage industry that has been created by building management companies working in tandem with providers of pressurized walls to provide the services to their tenants. So there's kind of like this very quiet backdoor action happening where the Department of Buildings is issuing permits for the purposes of pressurized walls to be put up in certain places. And, you know, it's actually illegal for them to do it, but they're still doing it because of, you know, the way that these walls get put up. So basically what our bill would do is eliminate that restriction, but still enforce and put, you know, some rules in place in order to make it as safe as possible. So as we're looking at the law, it's a very short law. And the reason why it's a short law is because a lot of this goes to the buildings department to promulgate the rules. They're the experts, they know what they're doing, they know what they're talking about. So we want to ensure that they have a scheme and regulations in place that will make this safe and doable for people if they need to. So all we're doing is, you know, adding the definition of a pressurized wall, which is a wall that extends from the floor to the ceiling and is installed by the use of pressure without being permanently affixed to the floor, ceiling, or any other wall that can be removed without damage to the floor, ceiling, or other wall. And then we're eliminating the restriction, which was put in place in 2010, and allowing this to be legal again. Some of the rules that we've talked to DOB and some of the rules that, you know, would be in place is that you'll need a window. So that's part of the building maintenance code. So any room that you create that is a subsection of a room or enclosed on all sides will need its own window. The room can't be too small. So it has to be a minimum of 80 square feet. So if you're taking a living room and you're making it into a bedroom, the bedroom has to be at minimum 80 square feet, but there still needs to be a common area. So you can't just eliminate your living room and just create a room and have no common area. So that, you know, the only way you can do this is if you have the space to create a, you know, still have a common area. The places where this is most likely used is, you know, to split apart studios, you know, when you have, you know, two people living there, you know, you can have, you know, some privacy, or in instances where you have, you know, two children sharing a room, you can put up a temporary wall to ensure that they both have privacy as well. Another one of the rules is fire safety. You can't obstruct any exit routes, any ventilation or sprinkler systems. And then, like I said before, the living room must remain even after the conversion. If you propose a converted apartment, if it meets all the criteria, then you still need a contractor to draw up the plans. You need to submit those plans to DOB for approval of a work permit. So this is where DOB steps in to ensure that, you know, the pressurized wall is going up in a safe manner. And if you're adding plumbing for whatever reason or doing any electrical work, you'll have to pull separate permits and have separate inspections for that work. That's not as common, but in the rare instances where that happens, DOB will need separate permits to be pulled for that work. So some examples just to kind of conceptualize what it is we're talking about. So this is an example of a pressurized wall room. So this is a you know, a living room that has, you know, two walls put up, one with, you know, windows, and, you know, they can use this for a dining room, they can use this for, you know, whatever. It's just a separate room. And as you can see, it doesn't go all the way to the ceiling. And, you know, it looks like it's always been there, but this is all removable and goes up, you know, in a matter of days. Another example is something like this, where they split the room in half. There's a window still in the new room. You also have this temporary window that's there in order to let light into the other room. This is for like a situation where you have a living room and you want to make a spare bedroom. This is how, it would look. And in this case, it looks like it's, part of the wall, but in reality, this is all molding that's put up there. That's, it's hiding the springs that are holding up the wall. So it looks like it's part of the wall, but it's actually not. Another example, something like this is similar to the other one, but you have a separate door. Again, bookshelves, you can, add storage, do a lot of different things with it. It's pretty cool. And then this is a situation where you have like a living room and they wanted a separate, dining room. They just put a half wall up to, give them some space to divide between the two. And again, this is a situation where it's not, a full size wall, but it's on there. So that's pretty much it in terms of the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know that a lot of questions came up at the last board meeting, but the reality is that, all we're trying to do is codify behavior that's already happening. This is not something that is too common here in East Harlem. This is something that is actually more common in Midtown and Village and in Brooklyn, where you have these really, really tiny $4,000 apartments, and you have 2-3 people living in them. They're creating some sort of privacy for the people there. And this is like just a band-aid on a bigger issue. And, you talked about it earlier, the need for affordable housing. So if we're not building any more affordable housing and we're not, providing any more affordable housing for folks, then we need to eliminate restrictions for them to be able to continue to live, where they grew up, where they work, where they live. So this is just a very minor stopgap to address that larger problem. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Well, I don't have a question. I basically have a statement. The law, the proposed law, it looks very nice. It looks very good. It answers. I'm pretty sure it answers some questions, because when you get to things like this, like pressurized walls and things like that, some people will try to skirt the rules and try to make them temporarily permanent. And this way with DOB getting involved in things, perhaps that can be prevented. That's all I really have to say. Are there any questions?
And to your point, I'm sorry, John, to your point, this law was proposed in conversations that we've had with DOB on not only this issue, but other issues that come up. They're aware of it. Obviously, they're enforcing it to the best of their abilities. They're afraid that if we don't do something to make it safer, people will just, it happened in Chinatown like about 2 years ago, where you had a floor cut in half. So you took a 10-foot, tall apartment and they built a 5-foot loft, and you basically have people living below and people living above. And then unfortunately there was a fire and people died. That's what they're trying to prevent from happening.
Absolutely.
So those rules and regulations will help prevent that.
Thanks, Will. Are there any questions from the committee?
Yes, you have 3 hands. So the first hand up, John, is Candy.
Candy, floor is yours.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. Now I could visualize what it is that you're presenting, because, I know that there's the accordion folders that people have been using as well, especially the ones that move into studio apartments. So the best way that they could, separate the kitchen, the living room from the living, from a bedroom, they created those folding partitions.
Yeah. I'm very familiar with those. Like my first year of marriage, my wife and I lived in a studio apartment in Manhattan, and that's literally how we had privacy. It was an accordion wall. So
right. So my thing is that, so who's gonna pay for that? Like, is that's coming out of the funding from the tenants because that they would like to do that, or is that coming from the landlord?
So this is done by the tenant. The tenant has to request this service to be done, and these walls, a wall system like that can run you anywhere from $500 to $5,000, depending on what you want. So this is wholly funded by the tenant, with the permission of the landlord and with DOB permits. So this isn't like something the city's funding. The city's not, doing it. The landlord can't go in and do it in preparation for someone moving in, because they won't get the C of A, the C of O. If there are temporary walls, like they have to come out with the tenant. So the wall follows the tenant. A lot of these companies will also rent you the wall. So if you have a 1-year lease, you'll sign a contract for like, $1,000 installation included. They'll come in, they'll put it up, and then when you're out, the wall goes with you.
Okay, so I'm sorry, but do you have to pull out permits for that too?
Yes, you have to pull permits for installation and to take out as well.
All right, so
And that's also at the cost of the tenant.
All right. All right. Would that be a clause? I'm sorry, guys. Would that be a clause in their lease as well? Or like it should be like, is it going to be an addendum to the lease of the tenant?
It can be. That would be between the landlord and tenant. The only time that the city gets involved in leases is if you're, dealing with, city subsidized housing, things like that. In those cases, I believe in most cases, any temporary structures are barred. But in a non-regulated, non-subsidized apartment, whatever agreement they go into, some leases can say no as a matter of right. The landlord does not permit it, and some leases do have that provision already in it. Others, like I said, there's a cottage industry that has developed on here. There are some landlords that literally, when people moving in, they're like, hey, if you want a pressurized wall, call this person and they'll set you up. I'm sure they get a kickback for it, or for whatever reason, they get something in return for it. But that is between the landlord and tenant at that point.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
John, you have 2 more hands up from the committee. Alonzo Johnson is next.
Floor is yours.
Hey, Will, how you doing?
My good neighbor, Alonzo, how are you?
Yes, we had some good times. Thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. Really appreciate it. Actually, Candy, on your conversation between you and Candy answered my first question, so I appreciate that. It was mostly about the responsibility of who's paying for it, and make sure that it's with the tenants. It's the tenant's responsibility, and not the landlord. So the landlord can't pay for something and then say it's a 2-bedroom and advertise it as a 2-bedroom. So we definitely want to make sure that stays away from the conversation.
So Alonzo, you have a personal connection to this, because the building that we used to live in together, my next door neighbor had that issue where it was a studio apartment, and the landlord, the management company, threw up a wall in the middle of the living room. I don't know if you ever got a chance to see it, but like they made a studio into a 2-bedroom. And I still think that's an illegal apartment in that building. I've reported it multiple times in order to help them. But they landlords that are unscrupulous, not every landlord, there are just some bad landlords out there, and unfortunately we had one together. Alonzo can tell you that story better than I. In that situation, a permanent structure like that is illegal, and I'm sure there were no permits. So this will help prevent that from happening.
Yeah, same thing happening next door to me, so I'm fully aware. Trust, it's very rampant. My other question is, when they do make these separations with the wall, like splitting a bedroom or whatnot, the window, you said that the wall has to have a window. Does it? Yeah. The window doesn't have to have an outside access point, right? It can be
It does. It does. So this is what would happen if you're taking a living room, for example, and you're creating a bedroom out of it. You would have to create the bedroom with an exterior facing window. Okay. The living room, the rest of the living room has to have, ample space to function as a common area. And DOB, when you submit the plans, will be able to tell you like, no, this is not the code. So you're gonna, the bedroom would take up one of the windows. Now, if you only have one window in that, living room, you wouldn't be able to do this. So
Okay.
you would have to have a window that can be, closed off as a bedroom. And then the common area would also have to have a window available to it. So if you don't
I
meet
only
those
asked
two
that. I
criteria-
only asked. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I only asked because one of the pictures you put up, it looked like there was, a window, and then there was another room behind it. So I just wanted that was the reason I asked, because it seemed like there was no access point to the outside. But if you're saying,
so if you're creating a non-bedroom separation, you don't need a window. So
Gotcha.
when would you do that? If you're creating storage, if you're creating like a closet, if you're creating a dining room, believe it or not, dining room doesn't necessarily need a window. So in those situations, you can get, you can create that kind of space. But if it's a bedroom or common area, it needs a window.
it needs a window, right? I'm good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Ditto.
Hey, I believe Beverly Pavone has her hand up, Marlene.
Yes.
Okay, Beverly, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the presentation. Wilfredo is very informative. Most of the questions that I had regarding this issue, you actually touched on from the questions and the conversation you had with Alonzo and Candy, because I was concerned regarding whether the landlord would be able to turn those apartments himself into making it if it's a studio, make it a 2-bedroom, like you said you're having problems with now, and then list it as such. And that would also, like take away affordable housing for people that need studio apartments, so this is like we need it, because we don't have enough affordable housing, but it's like a sticky situation, because on the other hand, we may be losing affordable apartments for smaller people, people who have just 1 bedroom or just needed one bedroom space, and it is taken over, and then the rent goes up even higher. Right now, I'm kind of in the middle between saying yes and no to this. I'm going to do some more research, but I understand the need for it, but it's really, really sad that we have to look into this type of things because we don't have enough affordable housing for people of the incomes that's in our neighborhood. It's really a sad thing.
And the reality is, Beverly, these types of walls, not incredibly common here in East Harlem. Yet. But the reality is, where they're being used, you're talking, rents that are in excess of $4,000 and up. At least that's what our research has found. I'm sure that spectrum, swings both ways. But the places that are really taking advantage of this, because if you think about it, you need to have the money to do it. And if you have the money to do it, you have the money to, you can afford to pay $4,000 a month. It's just, you're trying to cut your expenses by having an additional, room that you can let out. But yeah, the affordable housing, we're trying to attack it from every angle until such time that, the money arrives to build more really, truly affordable housing. The other bill that, I've been harping on, and the only reason I harp on it every time I talk to CB11, it's because it's near and dear to my heart, and it's like, it consumes me 24 hours a day. That's the Airbnb, regulation bill. That bill, which will pass later this month, will create more affordable housing opportunities because it's going to eliminate the hoarding of affordable units for the purposes of Airbnb only. Alonzo and I experienced this in our old building on 117th Street, where there were 6 or 7 units that were completely empty but furnished, and you just had people rolling in with their suitcases every day. rolling out every morning, and it was just an Airbnb business. And if you walked around with your phone and Wi-Fi, you would see Airbnb 1, Airbnb 2, Airbnb 3. Like they were just not trying to hide it whatsoever. And the building management was the ones who were doing this. So you have 6 units in a building that is regulated for affordable housing with quote unquote affordable rents. And you're taking those 6 units out of the hands of, good and well-deserving East Harlemites who need it.
Right.
For what? So you can make an extra $5-6 grand a month in Airbnb? That's not fair. So our bill that will pass will eliminate that possibility from happening, because it forces anyone who's going to advertise on Airbnb's website to get a registration number from the city. In order to get that registration number, you need to go through the ringer, make sure all your I's are dotted, all your T's are crossed, and the city will then approve or disprove you based on what you submit. And if you advertise without that registration number, the city will shut you down immediately. So again, attacking the affordable housing issue from multiple angles. That's really the only tool we have in our handbag at the moment.
Okay. Thank you again for the presentation.
Anytime. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Beverly. Are there any other hands raised, Marlene?
No, you don't have any more hands raised, John.
Okay, well, Will, thank you very much for the presentation, and it was very well appreciated. Also, please give the council member and your wife my regards, please.
Will do. Thank you for the invitation, and again, I'm available to use a resource anytime y'all need me. Thank you so much.
Oh, okay, Will. Okay. Let's see.
I'm sorry, bringing the presentation back up.
And next, okay, let's see. Oops. Sorry, folks, just 1 second. Okay. Okay, next presentation is a committee discussion on existing anti-displacement strategies here in the community.
Right, John?
Yes, ma'am.
I see that Eva, that's probably her hand that just went up.
Yes.
So Eva, I'm going to move you to the panelist for the sake of your presentation. And then I'll move you back over to the attendees. John, you can go ahead and if you would like me to, I can introduce Eva, but if you.
Yes, yes, you can make her a panelist. Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Eva, you should be allowed to unmute yourself now. I've moved you over.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're clear.
Thank you so much. And would I be able to share my screen?
Yes, you will.
Awesome. So just to give a quick intro, I've just been really thinking hard on how to, what CB11 can do even more to advocate to prevent displacement of our neighbors. I see too many getting displaced. I see affordable housing being built. And I think too much of the affordable housing being built is not set aside for our local residents. And it's painful to see. I know CB11 is highly aware of the issue. I just still want to bring it up to see what can be done more. And I have some additional ideas for discussion today. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, my screen is kind of frozen. I am not sure why it's frozen. The good news is it's frozen on a page that I really want to emphasize on. So
If you hit the refresh button, would that work? Is that also frozen?
yeah, maybe I'll see if I can share again. Okay, let me come again. One second. Oh no, it's frozen. Well, you know what? That's good because let's just share this screen. So one topic I want to talk about is if there's a way to use Watts Island for more affordable housing. So what I put up here is a Google map, and there is Watts Island. You can see the size of Watts Island is almost like maybe half of East Harlem, if not more than half. It's a lot of space. Quite a lot of it is set aside as water treatment plant. There is a golf course that is proposed to be rebuilt completely. So that's a potential good space for building new buildings. And let me take a step back. I think it's important to think about Roosevelt Island, right? That is a place that plenty of people would be very happy to live there. You have Cornell building a new science campus there. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of long tradition. The city tends to put surfaces that people don't want to see, you know, on Watts Island. But given the extreme shortage of affordable housing, I wonder if we can kind of forget about the tradition and think about a creative use of this space. Another issue that I see, you know, golf course, for example, I really wonder how many people in East Harlem are going to benefit from the golf course. And in that space, it is like the block, the golf course is almost the size of Wagner House. You know, we can build a lot of housing. Another thing that I want to focus on is the Congregate Shelters there, or the homeless shelters. There are about 1,200 men living there. And many of you have heard the shelters are not in great condition. There are sometimes a room of 50 people, 100 people living together without separation and privacy. Quite a lot of people there have kind of personal issues. So it is not quite safe for other people to live in the same room with them. So that is also another space potentially that can be used for really either rebuilding the shelters or reconfiguring the shelters. And there's space potentially to build up for more housing. So that's one of the key things that I want to talk about today. So let me take a pause and to see if you have any reaction to this seemingly radical idea of turning Watts Island into Roosevelt Island.
Thank you. Are there any, I do see a hand raised. If there's anyone, I see Xavier's hand, Marlene, is there anyone else that raised their hand before Xavier? Okay. Okay.
And Ivy?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I apologize. Xavier raised his hand first. Now
Okay.
Candy has her hand raised. So Xavier, Ivy and Candy.
John, I'll defer all my comments at the end of the presentation. I just wanted to say first, thank you for coming here and engaging with the Housing Committee. Much appreciated. And I'll wait till the very end after the presentation so we can actually engage. So that way I'm not jumping the gun on anything. So thank you for being here, and I'll defer then to Ivy and Candy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Xavier. Ivy?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Eva, for the provocation. I guess I have a lot of questions. Was that the completion of your presentation, or
No, I
just like a tempo check?
I have multiple other points, but I think the Watts Island point is really important. That's why I want to take a pause to make sure that it gets its deserved time of discussion. Because I think that is, to me, a key way to solve our problem. But I know that there are people who are concerned about changing the configuration. They want to keep the golf course, for example. There's also a horse riding rink in there, I believe.
Okay, I just wanted to say, I guess thanks for, again, the provocation. It's kind of like the sort of thing that you would hear like more in an academic environment. So I'm surprised to hear such a kind of radical proposal, but I think it's exciting. I think like just off the bat, I think Randall's Island, or at least for me as a resident of East Harlem, offers a lot of opportunities for recreation. So I love running there. And I think, you often see in the summer, like loads of families barbecuing. And so it has this really, really beautiful, it's a beautiful place to visit. And I think just a great resource for people who live in Astoria and South Bronx and East Harlem. I think that there are certain buildings that, I always wonder about when I drive on the Triborough or whatever, like what kind of state of use they're in. I guess it just seems that like it's such a broad sweep provocation that how can we start to target, are there individual development opportunities that exist? Like, is there a building that is going for sale? Maybe it is really just the golf course that they're building. But I guess I think it could be really interesting opportunity if one were to get very tactical and specific about these sites. Otherwise, I think as a sort of general provocation, it's like a little too general for me to comment on. I mean, but yeah, in theory, the thought of having more it'd have to be rezoned, I guess, for residential in discrete locations. And I think that it would just be like smart to engage with, maybe it's George Janes or another kind of professional urban planner who can advise the committee or the community board on, history of various parts of the island, what planning opportunities there may be, but it's certainly a huge effort, and I think it would require a lot of kind of professional expertise to weigh in.
Yeah, I think certainly golf course is an opportunity because they are proposing to completely rebuild it. And then, there are also people who are concerned. A lot of activists have been expressed concern about the conditions of the homeless shelters there. There are successful cases in other, including in Harlem, where you can convert homeless shelters into affordable housing. There are specific developers and architects who does that work. I've actually spoken to the homeless shelter operators, and they also said there's nothing more they would like than providing affordable housing, permanent housing for these folks. And the current setting, it's not entirely safe. I think Candy, do you have a question? Sorry, I think I should leave it to John to call.
That's okay. Candy, you have the floor.
Thanks. Ivy, did she answer your question or that was just your comment?
I guess I have a lot of questions, but maybe like Xavier, I want to see the rest of the presentation.
Well, yeah, I would like to see more of your presentation because I understand that it was frozen and everything like that, so the little malfunction. But
Okay.
based on what we saw, and I know Watts Island, since I was a little girl, I was always going there, right? And like Ivy said, it's more for recreation. And I used to go to school right on First Avenue, FDR, go across every single day and spend my time by the pier when the pier was in good shape. And so, or, go and do a lot of recreational stuff with the family, picnicking and all that kind of stuff. The only thing that we did have a problem with was really the shelter. And I know that there was an institution house there that they had people who had the mental ward, which was very scary, very unsafe, and no one was policing in the area. And that's the least thing, that's the most thing that's really lacking, is enough security. So if they're going to, playing around with the idea, because it's good to put it out there about putting housing there, just understand that it's like you're going to create a new town, like a new neighborhood, only because one, you have transportation, you then have, it's like Ivy says, a rezoning, it's a lot of work. Let me just tell you that if it's not possible, it could be possible, nothing is not impossible, right? I mean, I love housing and I would love to do another development, because it's like, it's a good experience when you're building from the ground up and then you see it into its fruition, and then you're giving keys to people to go and move into. The permanent housing in the shelters, the shelter, first of all, has to be reformed. There are in poorly bad conditions, but it's just a lot more has to be put into the thought and idea and in the planning. Then you also have to bring in together the land use committee to discuss that as a whole, but I like the fact that you put it out there, and nothing is impossible, but, transportation to get back into the city, because there was events, Cirque du Soleil, and then at the end of the day, at the end of the night, when it was time to go back home, transportation to grab a cab, to come to the island, to then bring you back to the east side, that was a challenge. It's a lot of, so there's a lot of groups that we have to come into play: transportation, land use, housing, yeah. But it's not a bad idea for you to bring that up, and I commend you and
thank you for your support.
you.
I'm a bit,
yes, because
like,
you know
I'm
what?
embarrassed.
We need housing. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be embarrassed, because you know what? You're thinking for the next person, and you're thinking out of the box.
I'm thinking
and
out
you're
of the
looking
box and
where we
thinking the next 2 decades,
Right,
what
but
do we need to do? Yeah.
Right, we need permanent housing. We don't need shelters. We need permanent housing these days. So I understand where you're coming from.
There is also a speaker that I invited. His name is Shams Baron. He was a homeless shelter resident on Watts Island. I don't know, in case you guys are interested in hearing his personal experience about living in the shelters there. If you are, you can let him speak. He's in the audience.
Yeah, let's hear him. He's very, he gives you a lot of insight. I've heard him before. He's very good.
There's actually one person that has their hand up, I believe, Alonzo, or that was from a previous question.
I'm lowering my hand because I want the conversation to move forward. And I'd rather hear Sham's testimony and hear the rest of Eva's presentation. So I'm happy to lower my hand.
Okay. Okay. And I'm sorry, Eva. What is the gentleman's name again, please?
His name is Shams.
Shams.
He's off of mute. Sham, you may speak when you're ready to speak.
Hello, how's everything? And thank you for inviting me, and thanks for allowing me to join you quickly. Just real quickly, I don't know if you're familiar with me. My name is Shams. I'm also known as the Homeless Hero. If you heard of the Lucerne situation, I was basically the chief advocate there. And obviously, I'm from Harlem. I'm now moved back into Harlem. And obviously my work continues in trying to move us from homelessness to housing. I was also a resident of Wards Island at the Clark Thomas Center for on and off for 4 years, and very aware of, both sides of it. It was also great for recreation. I'm a hip hop pioneer who did a lot of events out there too. So I enjoy that aspect of it. But being there as a resident in those congregate settings was so traumatic for me that it helped, well, it fueled my activism. And so while I dealt with a lot of different things throughout the city, I knew that the conditions and the environment of those congregate shelters on Wards Island, which doesn't just exist there, they exist in other places throughout the city, but of all of the shelters throughout the city, two of the worst ones are there on Wards Island, and the other one, the Bedford Atlantic shelter. Those are the epitome of what's wrong with the shelter system. And COVID only exacerbated that because of those congregate environments. So one of the things that I'm pushing for, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with, I brought Jamani Williams, Steve Levin, Councilmember Steve Levin, and Borough President Gail Brewer, along with members of the media, back to Clark Thomas, and we met with a number of residents and discussed some of the things. My push is not to be adversarial, not to be a complainer, just to find out what's wrong and what we need to do to make things right. I'm also working with Eric Adams and other people throughout the city to create a different type of environment. One of the things that I was glad to be a part of is pushing for a housing first strategy, which this mayor committed to at one of my forums where he spoke out. And so he's committed to utilizing state funds and city funds to repurpose distressed properties using Honda and other means to repurpose distressed properties like hotels, et cetera, throughout the city to turn them into dignified dwellings, not SROs or anything like that. So I've taken into consideration all of that, which you see, let's just say Wards Island, because we got space throughout different parts of the city. But if we were to take on this radical idea, a starting point could be these properties that are already being used for congregate shelters, and to actually repurpose them and turn them into dignified dwellings that could still house people that are experiencing homelessness, but could create a permanent or transitional situation that was more holistic and humane, and that is not a congregate setting. So even if we were to look at those properties, and instead of looking at them or utilizing them as shelters, to actually take them and utilize them as dignified housing for people, that could be a great starting point, and actually create, with the idea of creating more green space out there on Wards Island, that could actually create a better environment, even for those of us that utilize the island for recreation. So that was one of my proposals as a starting point, is to shut those congregate shelters down, turn that property into something that is more humane and holistic for people, and to move out of that concept of into a concept of sheltering and warehousing, and actually get people into housing. Because the reality is that most people are there for 3-4 years, some people more years, some people have no hope of ever leaving. And that doesn't make sense. It's completely inhumane. And I do think that your committee and other members of the community should have some real input into what goes on moving forward, because I can tell you as a person with lived experience that a lot of what we see on Wards Island or in other parts of Harlem, some of that can be directly attributed to the fact that those of us who were on Wards Island are not being served at all. And so, I thank you for inviting me. And if anybody has any questions, I'm here for you. And I hope that I'm able to offer something to the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Are there any questions? Yes, I don't.
I can go back to my presentation.
Okay. All righty.
John?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. Eva, the floor is yours.
So in the interest of time, I'm going to go really quickly. So this is my first page. I basically want to call out that, we can only set aside 50% of affordable housing or supportive housing for local residents. I understand, I want to know this year if there's more that we can do. Can we write a resolution? Can we talk to additional elected officials? And then secondly, I understand that there are housing ambassadors that are helping to recruit more of our residents into Housing Connect so that they will get into lottery. The idea is the more Harlem residents that are in the lottery, the more likely that the rest of the 50% will be set aside for East Harlem residents. And listed on the right-hand side are the 3 organizations: Hope Community, East Harlem Council for Community Improvement, and 116th Street Block Association. So I think one idea I have is if the Housing Committee can call these organizations to speak at Housing Committee to talk about their service, to see whether there is more that they can do. We should be able to hold them accountable to really canvass our residents who are at risk of losing their housing. And also we should see if there are additional organizations that may be able to participate in similar services or also provide service to prevent homelessness in the first place. So that's one ask. The other point that I want to make is in some areas, I mean, partly why I feel that building housing on Watts Island, again, not completely building it up, there will still be recreational space, is that in some areas of East Harlem, we almost have too much affordable or too much supportive housing. And I'm using the Western Border as an example. So, you know, when we approve individual affordable housing, oftentimes in CB11, it's hard to see the bigger picture. You know, what are the buildings that are next to that housing? Is there going to be a cluster of them that are that may, you know, create issue when, you know, when there's too much of supportive housing? Sometimes the residents, you know, together can cause an issue. With them individually, it's not an issue. So what I'm hoping that the Housing Committee would do is also to promote more of the HDFC home ownership program. I'm from the Western Border, and pretty much all the housing that we live in are subsidized HDFC home ownership housing. And, you know, neighbors who live next to me are really not different from, you know, East Harlem resident. They are previous, you know, police person, people who work in homeless services, people who are nurses. And, you know, together we built a really, really nice community. So I hope there's more emphasis on it. And even if we're building affordable housing and supportive housing, I think it's a great idea to add some element, you know, it could be 5%, that is home ownership program, especially given that the federal government is giving so much subsidies to this program. I hope more local residents can take advantage of it. And then another related point is I'm hoping CB11 will also help hold supportive housing programs accountable for bringing in good neighbors. At least some of the safety issues that we see are related to the supportive housing. And then one final point that I want to make, because we already talked about Watts Island and Congregate Shelter, is that we might need to also consider allowing higher density, taller buildings in the district if we truly want to prevent displacement, unless we can truly change the 50% threshold. Otherwise, you know, there's just not enough land to build. So I'm going to quickly just flash through a few diagrams, 2 seconds each, to just give you a sense of what I'm talking about why building on Watts Island is important. So this is a graph showing the crime rate in New York City. You can see our little district has high crime rate. And, you know, the Western Border is where I live. And I can see area with high crime rates also correlated with a high density of social services and supportive housing. I'm showing you a diagram of the NYCHA housing distribution. Again, where the western border is, underneath there is a dense layer of NYCHA housing. And that is, where a lot of the gun violence is taking place. So when we place more housing there, we just need to be cognizant of this overall distribution. The next slide showing that we have disproportionate amount of drug treatment center and adult-only homeless shelter. 10% of New York City's adult-only homeless shelters are in East Harlem. And then, and to just give you a sense of context on the west border, on the left-hand side, Central Harlem, CB10, is putting a lot of supportive housing. And then on the east side, CB11 is putting a lot of supportive housing. And I'm hoping to show you this diagram to show, all the names of these buildings are masked, but the goal is to show you that, it's important to put in a bigger context of where supportive housings are built. Really quickly, there's a Timber Terrace coming up to be built on the 19th Street. There will be 330 affordable housing. The current proposal is there will be 99 units set aside for formerly homeless households. So my feedback on that is that the same organization currently already manage around 200 units of housing next to this new building. So if indeed, I'm hoping that this committee will join me in recommending some home ownership programs in this building, as little as 5%. And on top of that, this committee will help invite the organization that's called Lantern Organization to really engage with the community, to engage with the neighbors, and to really help bring in good neighbors in the neighborhood, because currently some of the residents is causing issues in the neighborhood, ranging from taking drugs, dealing drugs, passing out on the street unconscious, so on and so forth. So two final slides. I think I mostly covered, my recommendation on Timber Terrace. I think it will be coming to the community board for discussion. We it's just primarily safety concern that we're asking for, and engagement with the Lantern Organization. And then finally, I just sum up 10 different points that I talked about in this dense presentation that I'm hoping the Housing Committee can choose some to focus on advocating. Even though I'm not a member of the committee, I hope to be there to help. So at the risk of repeating myself, advocate to lift the 50% threshold for gentrifying districts, hold housing ambassador accountable, sponsor homeless prevention service. So for example, that could be an item that we put on our district need statement. Support HDFC homeownership programs, hold supportive housing program accountable for bringing in good neighbors in terms of their screening and ongoing maintenance management. Consider placement of supportive housing holistically. Turn Watts Island into the next Roosevelt Island. Rebuild or convert congregate shelters. Be more receptive to tall buildings. And then one final point is, some of you might not know, but East Harlem's low-income neighborhood were used as a reason to provide subsidies to Hudson Yard. And almost up to $1 billion of subsidies were given to build Hudson Yard. And that money has not been recouped to East Harlem. So if we can recoup some of that money, I invite you to join me in the advocacy. Then we'll have money to fund more affordable housing. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. I believe Candy has her hand up.
Hi. I'm sorry. Hi. So I don't know if you know, I don't know if you know, but I'm the executive director to the 116th Street Block Association.
Oh.
And we are housing ambassadors, and we've been doing this even before we were selected, you know, to partner up with HPD to do the housing ambassadors. We've just been doing it from when they started, you know, like that's part of our job. We help navigate and also educate the people how to make themselves eligible and how to apply for the Housing Connect. Not only this one is easier than before, but also we help people that were in the TIL program to get into the home ownership. We just need more funding and support for that, you know. And so of course that comes through City Council and hopefully the mayor this time will look at it as part of their budget, because it is a lot of work and it's really easy at the same time. So to recruit the people is really educating them and making sure what's available, how to use it, and the resources and how to navigate in and out of the Housing Connect and to be eligible, because it's all about education. And if we don't educate our people of the community and the residents, then they won't know how to make themselves eligible, you know, because you could have people apply, but if they don't make themselves eligible, then that's what weans them out. So it takes a lot of education to do that. And so we need to make sure that, you know, we can be able to go out there and educate. With the pandemic, not everyone has access to a computer. So you still will want to do workshops where people have hands-on. They can see, like when you're sitting next to them, how to do their profile, how to navigate it once it's done, because that's where a lot of people get discouraged as well. You know, if you don't know how to navigate it in the computer, a lot of people get discouraged and they don't check or they don't apply, you know. So it just takes a matter of educating and you know, I don't have a problem. We have a lot of people 311 sends over to our office, and it's just countless of people that I can, during the pandemic, that was the only way we were able to help a lot of people, because I had my computer, or staff had the computer working remotely. And once you have a computer, then we're all, you know, working with each other, and it makes it easier that way. But not everyone has access to that. So the challenge is, and it's not even a challenge, but we have to make it realistic to understand that a lot of people do not have internet. And even if they do, they don't have access to a computer or a tablet where they can continue to pay attention and focus to see how often they've been selected. Okay, so it's a lot of work. Accountability, I can vouch for that. Okay, so I see that you have a whole checklist of work that we have cut out. And there's a lot of stuff that's already there. So we're not reinventing the wheel. It's just either restructuring it, reforming it, but just know that we need to get other committees involved, you know. And with the imbalance, that in itself, they got selected, but that was a whole workshop that the whole community board 11 did with HPD. I don't know if you knew about that, but like 2 years ago, when everyone in the community board participated and gave input to what they would like to see in the city, in these city properties. And so based on what was conducted out of what we had as the input is how HPD structured the proposal. So they did get selected. We all asked for home ownership. I don't know, like, unless we offer them, you know, invite them to our committee for a meeting, and that's up to John Green to invite them. So like that, we can have an insight as to what their project is gonna bring. I didn't read on it to have any type of home ownership, but I know that they're all basically rental. But, you know, to now, once funds are allocated to you and they're allocated to just do this specific housing development, and it's already approved, they can't change it, or it won't be changed, because the funders are the ones then that makes the regulation and the regulatory agreements. So there's a lot of details behind all of that. But it doesn't mean you can't have the acts. I mean, I don't know. And 50% of the income, community board has the preference. It can't be all just exclusively because of the fair housing law. Just a point across.
Thank you, Candy. Xavier?
Evening, everyone. Thank you very much for the presentation, Eva. You'll have to excuse me, we're dealing with bedtime with the kiddos. That's off camera. Yeah, I appreciate the presentation. I think if we take, and thank you, Candy, for your remarks, and everyone else. When we look at this holistically, I think when it comes to Randall's Ward Island, we've and as a community board at large, we have taken a position not to concentrate and not to isolate affordable housing as was done previously in other times. Hold on a second.
Yes, I heard someone mention about isolating affordable housing, but you know, we can also build market rate housing there.
Well, so sorry, my littlest one. I think he's very passionate about this issue too, which is a beautiful thing, because what also exists at Randall's Ward Island is a lot of open space. And one of the first things that many people have when they join the community board in general, when you come and get involved, and not to sound pedantic about it, but it's like you look at like the Power Broker, right? You read the Power Broker, which is about Robert Moses, the rise and fall in New York. We have a lot of open space there. There's a lot of land that we oftentimes have debated about utilizing for the benefit of the community. There are also certain shelters that are there right now. We've dealt with this issue of how do we comparatively and holistic fashion manage the appropriation of assistance to residents of this community, and then how we and our intersectionality with that and the greater whole of Manhattan and the 5 boroughs. And I think with this particular issue, I think it's important to look at and again, this is a general comment to it, is to say, what have we done to, what has historically been done from Community Board 11's perspective, to what are we gravitating toward over the past 10 years to include housing, affordable housing, and especially when it comes to mandatory inclusionary housing that occurred during our rezoning, and how that all interplays with what you presented here. And I think in the past, we have gravitated away from concentrating and isolating any type of supportive housing, or even just surely just affordable housing. We've tried to spread the bands, as it were, within each development, so that is inclusive, and very much to what the work that was done when I spent time abroad to extend our understanding and work together. And that we found what happened in the UK and Europe was that when they found that we would isolate over there and what they call the old country across the pond, then when they isolated everything, it would become self-perpetuating and extend the problems. And I think there's some parallel here, but what they did find is that when we derivated from that to be more inclusive and to create a more diverse community, many of the problems that were observed dissipated over the course of time. And I think that there is an asset at Randall's Ward Island, a greater conversation to be had is how can we activate that space and in unison with our parks, open environment, open space and parks and their activism and the way we try to engage there and how that dovetails with our economic development. And while we try to find resources and to stop the concentration of shelters and therefore isolating them, because I think most people want, and we've had former board members who have lived there on Randall's Ward Island and people who care and want to get back on their feet. And this is something that I know John and I have had ad nauseum conversations about putting the rungs back in the ladder. So I think as we pursue this, and thank you for presenting here, this is a conversation that we have to dive deep into the policy and really dissect it and how we all play a better part as all community boards, but also to how the fair share within the city and the boroughs. So I think that's a general comment and just looking back and seeing what our positions have been prior over the past 10 to 20 years. So everyone's been, thank you so much, Eva. Thank you, John, for letting me yammer on, as they say, for a bit. And I look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you, Xavier. And also, I just want to add on to something that Xavier said a moment ago. We were talking last week, and we were talking about a person who was a former member of this committee who went out and started a petition to reduce the height of a new apartment building. The building is on the corner of 96th Street and Park Avenue. It was supposed to be a 36-story building, but there is I'm not sure if it's a state law or a city law that above 60th Street, there is a limit to how tall a building can be. And what she did, she started a petition and they made the developers take 12 stories off of that building. So instead of it being a 36-story apartment building, it became a 24-story apartment building. But to increase the height of buildings, that the law is going to have to be changed. And I'm just bringing that. I'm not bringing it up to discourage you, but I'm just putting that out there so you know what's in front of any effort to increase the height of apartment buildings in this district. Xavier.
Yeah, just real quick, and thank you for bringing out that point. The other issue we faced within the northern area of our district, and I know this wasn't mentioned during the meeting, is that we are in the flight pattern of LaGuardia. And many of when we went through mandatory inclusionary housing, some of the issues we faced when it came to the position we have maintained about being 100% affordable with our height restrictions was that we are faced with a height limit in that part of the district where we cannot exceed a certain stories because of the amount of, well, I don't know what the flight term is, but the runway they need to land and take off. Like we're basically limited. We're capped at how high we can go, which plays another part, another variable, if you will. So just, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It's just something I wanted to add to that. But, you know, I'm seeing a very holistic dialogue, which makes me very pleased. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Xavier. Are there any other questions or comments from the committee?
I don't see any hands raised, John.
Okay. Are there any questions or
Eva
comments?
just raised her hand.
Yes, Eva.
I have a question. So is there anything actionable that can be done based on these recommendations in terms of helping to drive the agenda and our advocacy, or are we thinking that, you know, these are things that people have considered and, you know, it's not worth going down this path? What do you all feel like can be done?
I'm not saying anything is not doable, but what I will say, and is not to discourage anybody from doing anything, but as I said at a budget and district needs meeting, says the government moves as slowly as molasses uphill in February. So what you're talking about, a lot of the things that you're talking about are going to have to be you're going to have to convince a lot of people to your way of thinking. Then you're going to have to get in some cases legislation done, and also the thing is that you're also going to have to get developers who want to build affordable housing, and like I said, it's not that it can't be done, but it is like government and other things. It is a long process. I mean, the thing is that it's even in other types of things, legislation in this country has taken a long time to get done. But the thing is that it didn't stop people from going about and getting it done. But I'm just letting you know that there are some things that are going to take a long time to get done. I mean, we can write resolutions if we want to. We can invite people to discuss different housing options like ownership and all that we can do. And if we can get anything done as far as adding things to the list of requests for the next round for budget and district needs for fiscal year, it's at 24, I believe. The thing is that we can get that done. Oh, there's a couple of hands up. Ivy, the floor is yours.
Yeah, hi, thanks. I guess I mean, not that I know any better than anyone else on this board about to answer your question, Eva, but like, it just seems to me, and I'm just gonna be completely honest, like seeing your presentation, it's really pie in the sky. You're just saying, okay, we're gonna take this whole chunk of New York City that alleged, like, it seems like no one's considered, and then we're just gonna build housing there. It's like, yeah, I mean, sure, that's an idea we're all listening to and we're happy to hear it, but without more kind of specific or concrete or realistic or pragmatic, like research or something that's behind it, then I don't see why anyone would listen to this beyond just like a purely academic conversation. So like, however, having said that, I don't think it's impossible. And I mean, like I said earlier, I think the first step would be to get some real like thought behind it as far as people that know about development, people that know about urban planning. Like, you know, this kind of topic is really ripe for like a design studio and a university. Like I put in the chat, I know Columbia University, I studied there for my master's degree in architecture, and we had one semester where we focused on housing and we built affordable housing, and every semester they have a different site. It's usually always in northern Manhattan or the South Bronx, and it focuses largely on affordable housing. That's one example. So reaching out to faculty there, and then you can get, you know, access to professional urban planners and, you know, people in the real estate development program just through that kind of venue. I mean, that seems like a kind of place where you could start to put together realistic knowledge on this, but otherwise I don't really see how you're not going to convince me, certainly. And like, I think maybe like another idea is to talk to George Janes, and maybe it would be that once if the community board, I don't know how he gets paid or whatever for the work that he does, but he is a consultant that is hired by the community board and he works for us. So seems like putting together a kind of feasibility study, or at least having a phone conversation with him, is something that could be arranged, and then see what's next. That's how I would go about this if I were you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I've talked to quite a few people outside of CB11 about it. And I think some people are really passionate about it. They think it's a great idea. But then when I speak to some people in CB11, especially people who have been in CB11 for a longer time, they don't, they're not really enthusiastic about this idea. I think they are used to, they like Watts Island the way it is. So that's why, my idea of coming to here is to get a sense of, the community's overall take on it. If it's just, that's a bad idea, why you waste our time, then, let's not pursue it. So that's the main reason for coming to get your take on it. Obviously, it needs a lot more work, but if the community as represented by the CB11 is against it, then, let's not even go down that path.
But I think like, and I'm just speaking as a professional, so I'm an architect. So in order to convince people of an idea that you want them to build and spend tons of money on, you have to have really good research and materials and facts, and it has to be super specific. So if you are approaching this like, oh, let's just take over the whole island and have people live there, it's too general. And so it has to be specific about like development site A, development site B, what's the pro forma, like how much is it going to cost, who owns the site now, like all of these sort of realistic things. So and it's not to say that it's not a bad idea. I just think that I'm guessing that you don't work in this development industry. I don't know what your professional like background is, but Candy, for example, works in this industry and she is like an expert. So there are people in the room here that happen to be experts in this field, and I think that's a great place to start. But we need like professional urban planners to be able to weigh in on this. I think
yeah, definitely.
To advise the community board one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys think that this is not a horrible idea and are willing to partner with me, I would love to work with you all on it. So I think that's great feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivy. Are there
I didn't want to say I'm talking out of turn, but I don't mean to say it's not a good idea. I think it's a great idea. I just think that if you want an idea to really take off, then you need,
Yes. Yeah, no, much more work needs to be done. I know Sham is, on his own path to advocate for improving the conditions on the congregate shelter. So that's another thing I think I'm hoping CB11 can support it. I've been there a few times myself and, truly see the conditions. And I truly hope for better conditions for the residents there. So that's another thing I think CB11 can help. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Candy.
Okay, I won't take too much time because I know that it's 8 o'clock. But what I do want to say is I'm not trying to discourage at all. I see that someone wrote that it was, about encouragement and that this is really sad for the community board members. But, we worked hard. I don't know I don't know how long you know about the history of Community Board 11, the issue that we just finished doing a rezoning that was it was a lot of work, all right, where to the point that a lot of people agreed, some didn't agree. It was very controversial, and it was a lot of hard work that was put in and was vetted by every single committee and everything that the community board members, every single community board members, there was not late night meetings that each committee committed themselves, committed members, former and current. And you can ask around with the ones that have been there long enough. Okay, John Green, I don't know if you remember, even Xavier. It was very hard and it was kind of brutal where we wanted conditions. Okay, we did enough. The height buildings to build tall housing development buildings, you want tall buildings, there's height limits, because remember, you got to make sure that it's not going to overshadow other people's light as well. Everything was well thought out. We all put in, there was not one person that did not put input as a community board member, each and everybody, and it was taken into full consideration back and circled back into the land use committee meeting. The land use committee. At that time I was chair. John can tell you, it was not easy, but we did. And we try to come up with ideas and our input was very passionate, so passionate that You know, I mean, it was too passionate. So that we're not trying to discourage anyone from any ideas that they want to bring in. Like Ivy said, it does have to be realistic, and it really has to be something that has to be well thought, well planned, but it has to be a consensus with everybody. You know, the island is big. We're not saying we can't, that yes, we all can agree that that shelter that is there and the ward space that is there from the institution, that needs to be reformed. It needs to be fixed. You know, the congregation never worked. People have gotten, they don't talk about it. The media won't talk about it, but I know because I've gotten clients, they've talked about how they even got raped in there. So, you know, I know the dangers that is there, you know, but it's not helpful when people are saying it's discouraging. We're not trying to discourage you. We're just being a little bit more, we've already paved the way through where we're at right now. A rezoning happened that we weren't favorable of, you know, but some of the things were done. I'm just trying to, but I'm just trying to put it out there on that. Please read history, and then we can revisit everything, but understand that, yes, I think these dialogues can come up. All right. But it's going to need to bring all committees involved. It's not just only at housing and land use, but you're going to need to involve everyone. And maybe we could do a roundtable, or, you know, it's up to the chair to decide, you know, with other committee members to have a joint committee and have discussions, you know, because that all just planning, because this is what we do.
And you all have more experience than I do.
So but you brought up something that has something that people can do a dialogue on. You know, but there's a lot of history, and we just got through a rezoning that, you know, not everybody wasn't favorable of, and we didn't like exactly how some of it came out with the outcome based on what the mayor then says. Because remember, we're an advisory. What we want and what we advise is one thing. What the city turns around and does is another. You know, but we, you know, it's not like we don't stop there. I just wanted to bring that point across. And that's it.
And thank you for all the work that you do. I know the work the 116th Street Association does. I don't at all mean to criticize this work. I'm just kind of logically thinking through putting together a framework of everything that we can do in terms of helping to minimize displacement. So, you know, none of it is meant to be a criticism at all. And also just to, you know, offer to see what can other people outside of the committee can do to help. Thank you for all your feedback.
Xavier?
Yeah, no, thank you, Candy. I mean, when we went through rezoning, and then even prior, like I joined a little over 12 years ago. And there were others who've since resigned, Francis and Joe. The institutional knowledge and what we carry forth is how do we continue solving the problem, right? When community boards were added into the city charter, and again, at the fear of sounding pedantic, we're all part of the solution here. It's about having the dialogue and carrying forth all the reasoning and all the information. That's how and that's the spirit I think we all carry, which is like, let's look at it logically. Let's carry the spirit of like, let's collect all the information. It's more than an educational exercise. It's more than any of that. It's about us saying, hey, what is the living, breathing body of this community as it exists? We take all the information and we look at it in a pragmatic way with how the superstructure, right? Our superstructure, all our agencies, all of our electeds. And I just saw a quick, and that's how we all interplay, but we have to have those dialogues. And I would like to say to any community members concerned, it's not that we're not thinking about these things. It's we're living, breathing it, we're eating it, we're tasting it. Like from the Halloween festival, most recently, we're handing out candied apples and interacting with the youth and helping give a resource during a pandemic. The genesis happened last year, like to the moment when we had rezoning, to even when we're just renaming parks 10, 15 years ago. The whole purpose is that we're engaged and right now. And so when you talk and you present a possibility, we have the dialogue, we discuss it, and we say, what are the possible results? And we weigh it all out and have that discussion. And I think that the best thing we can do is understand that we're not necessarily coming at each other from opposing angles, but rather opposing perspectives and saying, hey, How can we do this? This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm observing through my experience, and let's have a go that we can actually interact and exchange information. And I think that when it came to the rezoning, Candy raised a couple of salient points that it was very visceral, the interaction. We were upset. And I'll give you a case in point on where Children's Aid is, the block from 101 and 100 from Lex to Park. There was advocacy to include that in the rezoning. And we were trumped by our former council member, Melissa Mark Viverito. She didn't want to do it at all and fought against it. And here's an issue that we have faced from community pushback with everything that's happened on that block. That's just one prime example of advocacy. Did we get 100% of what we want? No, we got a pretty good share, but not everything we wanted because we were boots on the ground. That's just one of many examples. So it's important for us, and Candy's heard this turn of phrase, is we deal with quote unquote the spirit of gentrification, but really it's more about us unifying. I look at it less than a spear, but more than we are unifying, coalescing under the realization that our community, and as I've said many times before, it's righting the wrongs of Robert Moses. We're trying to recalibrate everything because we've lost a lot of socioeconomic bands of representation. That's it. So Eva, thank you for coming here and just getting stuck in. That's the beauty of this. And this is what Candy, I'm just very pleased, and I'm sure we all want to sign off and stop listening to me. So I'm going to be quiet now and just say that we're all here with the same common good, which is the greater good. That's it. And we have to continue talking with each other and looking at how we can all plug it in.
Thank you so much for giving me the platform.
Yeah, so let's keep working together, grab all the information. And I'm just giving, and I focus just on that one block because it's become very, I think it was Alonzo, and I think Beverly made it, but Robin did, and others from our new board members, where we could show a real life event of one block right there that's impacted, long-term impact of the community or midterm and short-term. And I think that's just one example of how we showing what our work can do, the impact it has. And so this is more of a long-term goal. We should loop in a land use just like we did during rezoning and carry on. John, if everyone would be so kind to excuse me, it's my time for bedtime stories. Would you please excuse me?
Do what you gotta do, Xavier. Thank you so much for your comments.
Thank you, Eva. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, John. Everyone, I'm going to sign off because I got to go read. And I read the Spanish in the house, so I'm going to go do it.
Go on, do what you got to do.
Oso polar, ¿qué es ese ruido?
Thank you, Xavier.
Right.
Okay, and I just want to say, like Xavier said, the thing is that all of these things that were suggested tonight isn't just going to be a part of housing. It's going to be eco-dev. It's going to be open space parks. It's going to be human services. It's going to be a huge, and the thing is, it may have to become like a task force type thing to in order for us to get it off the ground. No one ever said that it can't be done. The thing is that it's just going to take a lot of doing. And it's going to take a lot of people putting their heads together to get it done. But other than that, are there any other questions?
It's just a comment real quick.
Okay, Candy.
This is how then, the dialogue can start, where I've been pushing for us to have the alternative transportation of having the boat, the ferry transportation back and forth. And that will give a way of starting the dialogue of, having the ferry, because it got bumped off the budget this year and last year. And I keep asking about it because we had it the other year and it was okay. And it was on one of the, on the list, but that's going to be transportation, but it's everybody all in home.
Yeah, I told their MTA and they said that, oh, you need to generate more demand before we give you better transportation to Randall's Island. And I was thinking, well, it's true, because there's so many private schools who are just sending their, charter schools sending their kids to use the soccer field. So now many people in our public school can't even use the playground. And then we're now talking about building a golf course. How many people in East Harlem are going to play golf?
Point well taken. But The thing is, but I will say this, and not as a counterpoint, that we can't say that no one will. We just don't know who might. There may be some kids that may get interested in golf. So, but the one thing to do is to find out if there are any kids interested in golf. There's a hand raised. Ivy, you have the floor, man.
Hey, thank you. I just wanted to say, like, there were some comments that I was being very discouraging. Eva, I think it's an amazing and incredible idea, and I'd love to continue to work on it with you. As a person who works in this industry, I would I'm just offering my most practical, tactical advice, and that is that we get someone like George Janes to really do a study on this area. And that's, where you can start to have the conversation. Then you go to the land use committee, and then we can come back to housing. But without hardcore, an urban planner really weighing in and development experts weighing in, it's too idealistic. We do need, some hardcore facts and stats behind this in order to give it wings. And that's my best advice I can give you. So
yeah, no, I totally appreciate it. I asked around, and I was told the housing committee is the first stop I should go to pitch the idea. So that's why I haven't, you guys are the first to hear it. And hopefully, with your expertise, so we can, take it a little bit further than what I have.
Thank you, Ivy. Like with anything, the thing is what you truly need is data. And the thing is that once you get data, you can show people that you're right. The thing is, you can persuade them to your way of thinking. So the thing is that's what we're going to need, and we're going to need it from several committees. So the thing is that I'm willing to help in any way I can. So that's what I have to say about it. Any other questions? I know.
Thank you, you guys. Thank you. I feel the love. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eva. Okay, Marlene, is there anything else on the agenda? And I don't think there is, but I'm just checking with you.
It's fine. No, there isn't anything unless anyone has any old business.
Is there any old business? I hear crickets.
Okay.
Is there any new business? Geez, the crickets are getting out of here.
No, real quick.
Okay, Candy.
Can we invite an update? I mean, I know that they're going, probably land use is gonna probably get Sendero Verde to give an update on what's going on with their development site, but how about on the housing piece? Like, it's already built, right? So can we do a follow-up on that?
I can't see why not. Marlene, if you can get in touch with them and see if they can come if whether it's at the next meeting in December or after the first year, if they can't make it in December.
Right. As long as, yes, they are, it's built and leased up, I will propose some dates to them. No problem.
That is appreciated. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. And after that, there's still crickets. Okay.
Okay. Just if you don't mind to indulge me, let me just take the attendance as a
Oh,
matter.
Absolutely.
Just to see if anyone, I don't want to mark someone that joined the meeting late, marked them absent. Stephanie, so excuse. Roger had to leave. John Green.
Here.
Thank you. Robert Harvey.
Here.
Thanks. Jada's out. Did Jada join? Jada Heredia. Ivy Hume.
Present.
Thanks. Alonzo Johnson.
Here.
Thanks. Robert Prinsky.
Here.
Beverly Pabon. Xavier had to leave. And Candy Vivas Vasquez.
Here.
Thank you so much.
And I now adjourn the meeting at 8:19 p.m. Thank you very much for a very, very good meeting, everybody. And our next meeting is December 7th, correct, Marlene?
Yes, John. Mhm.
Okay, thank you so much. Everybody have a good night, and I'll see you all at full board.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Night, thanks.